inline four-cylinder engine is possibly the most loved and desired formats in India, and one of the major reasons behind that is what we'd like to call inline four symphony. But wait, there's more to the Suzuki Katana than pure oral bliss.
Most motorcycle manufacturers these days are wooing a set of buyers who can't resist the charm of a neo-retro motorcycle. Suzuki too did so by reviving the Katana moniker in 2018 and unveiling the bike at the Intermod show. They also showcased the bike at the 2020 Auto Expo in India. But the BS6 emission norms were imminent and meant we had to wait till Suzuki updated the engine. Now that the Katana is here in its BS6 avatar, let's first get to know where it draws its inspiration from. Back in the 1980s, the GSX 1100S Katana was launched, and it went on to become one of the greatest sport bikes of its times. Not only did it have a powerful four-cylinder engine and a competent chassis, its styling lent it a distinct identity. That can be said about the 2022 Katana as well.
I can only imagine the pressure the designers faced while penning the lines of this motorcycle, but I must admit they've done an absolutely terrific job. Not only does this motorcycle look like a lovely evolution of the original 1980s Katana, it also packs the charm from that bygone era.
This is clearly evident from the shape of the bodywork that largely comprises flat surfaces and sword sharp lines running from nose to tail. The rectangular headlight, fang-like LED position lights, the seamless-looking amalgamation of the semi-fairing and fuel tank, or the classic Suzuki sticker and the Katana logo are design elements that grab attention. In contrast to the front end, the mid and tail section is minimal yet superbly executed.
In fact, I've been riding this motorcycle for close to 2 days, and every time I park this motorcycle and get off it, I just stop and stare at it. The sharp lines, the creases, the way the whole bike has been put together, its stance. This is one of the best looking neo-retro motorcycles ever made.
It looks as sharp as the Katana, the Japanese sword, thus befitting the name. More importantly, you get this hit of nostalgia the moment you look at it. If you are an 80s or 90s kid, you would relate to what I'm saying. For 2022, Suzuki has also introduced new colorways that look striking, especially with the color-coordinated Enkai alloy wheels. Continuing the retro theme, the LCD instrument cluster appears pretty old school, with fonts that seem to be inspired by the Nintendo Game Boy video games. While you've got all the information you need, it is hard to read when the sun is overhead. The adjustable brightness helps to an extent, but it isn't enough. The Katana's design isn't entirely a case of form over function either. Once seated on the 825mm perch, the riding position feels sporty yet relaxed. You could easily commute to work on a daily basis or attack corners on your favorite mountain road or racetrack. In fact, the position makes for a comfortable touring machine as well. The caveat is the puny 12-litre fuel tank, which equates to around 120 to 140 km range, or lower if you ride spiritedly. The number of fuel stops one would have to make over a long journey could be a major irritant. Also, there isn't enough steering lock by street naked standards, so tight U-turns would end up being a 3-point turn. Then there are a few other minor issues we noticed during the course of this test. The black paint on the rear brake lever as well as the heel plates had begun to wear off. An adjustable clutch lever would have been nice considering the brake lever can be adjusted. All said, these niggles can be easily overlooked, for the engine in this motorcycle is up there with some of the greatest engines we've ever experienced.
You know the old adage, why fix if it ain't broke, fits perfectly with the Suzuki K5 engine. This engine is essentially well over 15 years old, but with timely updates, it continues to soldier on in times when emission norms are stricter than ever.
For 2022, this engine has been updated with new cam profiles, new valve springs, electronic throttle bodies, new clutch and exhaust system. Power has gone up to 152 HP along with a shift in the red line from 10,000 RPM to 11,000 RPM. The engine also produces stronger bottom end torque and a wider as well as smoother torque curve. As for the electronics, the three ride modes A, B and C temper the power delivery without altering peak power outputs. The throttle response is sharpest in A without being unmanageable, while in C it is the softest, ideal for wet roads. Mode B, as expected, offered a good balance between A and C.
It's when you ride the bike is that you realize why Suzuki hasn't pulled the plug on this amazing engine. First of all, it has good bottom end grunt, so you could be riding at low speeds and higher gears without any issues. There's strong mid-range punch as well, and it's quite responsive. But take this engine past 7,000 RPM and that's when all hell breaks loose. The acceleration, especially in mode A, is fierce. The sound of the intake and the scream of the exhaust, as well as the sight of the horizon coming towards you at a rapid pace, it has the ability to thrill you every single time.
While the performance is good, bear in mind that this engine requires 95 or higher octane fuel to run at its best.
The standard up and down quick shifter also helps in ensuring there's barely a pause in the bike's relentless surge to the horizon.
The 5-step traction control does a good job of keeping you from wrapping yourself around a tree, although I did feel that it intervened too abruptly at level 5 when it's at maximum alert. But it is much more transparent in the lower settings, and there is the option of turning it off completely as well. Complementing that beautiful engine is a nice chassis with adjustable suspension. It is well balanced and you don't really feel the 217 kg curb weight once you're rolling.
Out of the box, the suspension has a good balance between ride and handling. We are in the middle of the monsoon season, and as is the case with every year in Maharashtra, the roads are filled with potholes. Now, given those conditions, the suspension did a pretty good job of absorbing most of the bumps and potholes that we encountered. As for the handling, it is nice and predictable, a very planted motorcycle, but my biggest concern is with the Dunlop tires. They simply don't have the grip and feedback that you'd want from a motorcycle that makes this kind of power.
This issue is pronounced on a wet road where the tires felt numb, robbing one of confidence. That's not to say that these tires are completely rubbish, but they are okay at best. I couldn't help but wish the Katana had a grippier set of rubber like the Michelin Road 5 to fully exploit the potential of the chassis. Thankfully, the 140mm ground clearance didn't prove to be an issue. The radially mounted Brembos at the front and the Nissan at the rear offer strong braking, hauling the bike down to a halt quite effectively. My only gripe is with the wooden feel of the brake lever, which could be down to the use of an axial master cylinder instead of a radial unit. Also, Suzuki continues to persist with rubber brake lines on its sporty motorcycles, and you'll want to replace them with steel braided lines if aggressive braking is a part of your riding style. Although it costs close to Rs 2 lakh more than its nearest 1000cc competition from Japan, the Kawasaki Ninja 1000 SX, the money spent is worth it for the additional power, character, and excitement.
There are very few neo-retro motorcycles that evoke such a strong sense of nostalgia in the way that this motorcycle does. And I think the Suzuki Katana's design is largely responsible for that. Now, when you couple that with a gem of an engine and a good chassis, What you've got is a truly desirable liter class machine. If you are in the market for a neo retro motorcycle, or nostalgia is a trip that you keep buying tickets to, the Suzuki Katana is an option that is really hard to ignore.